Welcome to Horror on Trial. I'm Alex, and here we like to talk about moral decisions, choices, debates that we find in some of our favorite horror movies and horror adjacent. Today we're talking about The Hitcher from 1986. If you don't know me from my Somewhere in October YouTube channel, you will not know that I am obsessed with The Hitcher. I absolutely love this movie, and the cat and mouse of Jim Halsey and The Hitcher gets even more complicated. If you haven't seen The Hitcher, this will be full of spoilers, so please go watch the movie and come back and let's talk about it. Welcome to Horror on Trial.
I want it to be good.
Something I gotta do.
We don't know how much it cost us yet.
When we talk about The Hitcher, we are going to focus on Jim Halsey. I would maybe do an episode in the future where we actually focus on The Hitcher and his motives and trying to understand him, but I find him so complicated and sometimes larger than life. He's not quite supernatural, but I think you could argue he could be. So it's a little bit too complicated right now. But Jim Halsey is a very complex story character, but we can really see what happens. And some of the questions or the lens I want to look at is who Jim Halsey is throughout this entire movie. Is he innocent? Does he lose his innocence? Does he become a monster? Where does the Hitcher's responsibility end and Jim's begin? Did he fall for the Hitcher's trap? What happens to him? Is he acting on his will to live, his will to survive, his will for justice, self-preservation, maybe even vengeance? I want to dive into who Jim Halsey is and who he becomes. This is also May, and although Mother's Day has passed, there is a mother's warning in here that I'm going to remind you to remember. If you know, you know. When we start the movie, we meet Jim at his most innocent. He is driving down the road. We are seeing him drive in the darkness, in the rain. Kind of a dangerous choice, I would say. Maybe it's naive. I feel like when I was younger and I first got my license, especially when you're really full of adventure. Wow, this sounds so depressing. I'm still full of adventure and everything. I just feel like I've roughened up and I've gotten into a car accident, so I know now. But I feel like when I first started driving, I didn't have a fear of weather. I didn't have a fear of time of day. I just drove. And I feel like that's who Jim is here. He is really excited. He has this car. What is it called? I won't be able to tell you, but he picks up a car that is basically being sold or is going to another dealership, and he drives it over. So he's the transportation, but he also gets to drive the car, which is exciting. But we do see him making unwise choices because he is falling asleep behind the wheel. As Jim is driving, a blue beetle passes him. Keep this in mind for later. But he is falling asleep behind the wheel. He is already making some poor choices. Now, this stretch of road, this setting we're in, there doesn't look like there's a lot of places to stop and pull over. It could be argued that it's dangerous to pull over and sleep in your car, but it's also dangerous to fall asleep driving. It doesn't just danger you, it endangers other people. And we see this because he really does fall asleep, where he drifts away for a moment and has to swerve not to hit a truck. He is freaked out. He's understanding what he's doing does have a dangerous element, I would say. And I think that plays into, well, we learn it does, why he picks up the Hitcher. And then we get to Jim's number one bad decision. This decision is what makes all the dominoes fall the way they would. Now, you could argue, maybe something else would happen down the road and he would end up in this situation anyway, but that is hypothetical. He picks up the Hitcher. We see the Hitcher with his thumb up, and Jim slows down. He says, "My mother told me never to do this." For Mother's Day, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Whether you're a mother, have a mother, or whatever, listen to this.
My mother told me never to do this.
I would love to pick up hitchhikers. I would love to live in a world where we can help one another. But putting yourself in such an enclosed space where nobody can really see you or hear you is very, very dangerous, and we see the risk of that. Let's also not hitchhike. This could have been a very different movie if the hitchhiker was fine and the hitchhikee was the bad one. Is that how you would say it? The Hitcher introduces himself as John Ryder.
My name's Jim Halsey.
John Ryder.
And Jim, of course, is asking, where are you going? Where do I need to bring you to? But the hitcher, I'm not going to call him John Ryder, I like saying the hitcher, he keeps avoiding the question. And not in a suspicious way, he just doesn't answer. But Jim should see this as something alarming. And we still see Jim's innocence and trying to figure out the hitcher because he asked the hitcher, aren't you going to tell me where you're going? And the hitcher just stares at him. And Jim is saying, why are you looking at me like that? He's not taking this as a threat.
You gonna tell me where you're going?
And this is when the blue bug, the blue beetle, circles back around. We see it on the side of the road, looking abandoned, looking unnatural in the setting, I would say. And Jim sees this. They were driving earlier. I wonder what happened. He starts to slow down to get a better look at what's going on, and the hitcher pushes his leg into the gas to accelerate and drive past. Jim, being brave, says, what did you do that for? Not brave enough because he should have kicked him out. And the hitcher's like, oh, did I scare you?
Scare you?
Yes, you laid hands on me and you made me accelerate on the highway. What are you doing? This is when Jim tries to end this situation but realizes he's powerless. This is the first moment Jim loses control. He was in control when he picked up the hitcher, but from here on out, for a long time, he's not going to have control. Jim pulls over and he says, look, I think you better get out now. This was a bad idea. And the hitcher kind of pretends he's going to get out, but doesn't.
Look, I think you better get out now. The ride's over.
Jim even tries to say goodbye. It's like when you're trying to end a phone call and you're like, okay, see ya, I gotta go, bye. But the other person wants to keep talking. That's the hitcher right now. He says, I'm gonna sit here and you're gonna drive. What choice do you have? Unless you're going to be the one to escalate the situation, you're gonna have to drive. But he should tell you where he's going. You want me to drive you where?
I ran out of gas.
So you need a gas station.
The hitcher says I ran out of gas, and Jim is so excited. Oh, you need a gas station. I can do that. Yeah, we can do that. He has a goal. There is an end point to this journey, this situation. But we know the hitcher don't need no gas. But for him, he's so innocent and naive. And I don't ever mean naive in a negative way. I think you stop being naive through experience. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. But in this situation, it's dangerous, and it often is. At this point, Jim is under the impression that the hitcher is a strange man, not a dangerous one. But the hitcher keeps being a little bit off. He says gas stations have cigarettes. And Jim is like, sure, but don't you need gas or do you just need cigarettes? I mean, either way, the end point is the same. But Jim is starting to get frustrated because one, he's doing him a favor, and two, he's just being weird and evasive. So Jim raises his voice a little bit and says, what do you want?
What do you want?
The hitcher laughs. This is when you need to be scared. But Jim is still so innocent because instead of him seeing this as a red flag or getting alarmed, he says, what's so funny?
What's so funny?
Then we get to the revelation, and the hitcher reveals who he really is. The hitcher reveals, that blue bug back there, that guy who drove it, he picked me up before you did. Starting to get worried. What do you mean? He picked you up. What happened? We find out. And the hitcher says that he's sure the man is still in the car because he couldn't walk very far. And Jim is like, why is that? We're asking questions, but you're not going to like the answer.
Because I cut off his legs and his arms and his head.
And he tells Jim he's going to do the same to him. Jim is rightfully scared now. He is seeing what's going on. He is seeing the danger he put him in and that he should have listened to his mother. But what do you do at this point? If you try to escalate this physically to push him out of your car, how are you going to do that without him retaliating? And somebody who seems so violent is probably going to escalate quicker and more violently and win in this situation. So Jim is helpless, and he's definitely lost control at this stage. But his innocence is still there. Jim finds his first real chance for help because there's a construction zone with a traffic stop, and they pull up, and they have to roll down their window, and they have to talk to someone. This is going to be very debatable because what can you really do? Again, you could say that you say something, maybe you get out of the car and bolt. Maybe that's what I would have done. But the hitcher does put him in an impossible situation. But I do think if I was in this situation, this is when, does he have a seatbelt on? Too many steps. I would have just ran out that door. Because I don't think the hitcher, no, he would. Yeah, I guess he's kind of screwed. But what I like about this is daylight horror, which we're going to get into. Because it's nighttime right now, but most of this happens in the daylight. And Jim is terrified and the sun is rising. It's just such a contrast. One of the main reasons Jim really can't do anything for himself here is because the Hitcher has his little switchblade, his knife, puts it to Jim, don't do anything stupid. So all of these hypotheticals, what he can do, I think the Hitcher would have killed him. I don't think he had a chance. There's nothing he could have said, done, that would have helped him. We know the Hitcher is not intimidated by a crowd of people. I know Jim doesn't know that, but we can look back with 20/20 vision and say, sure, he could have said something, he could have screamed for help, he could have made a signal. The Hitcher is not afraid to kill you because he's not afraid to get caught. He'll do it in front of people and then he'll kill those people. You don't have a chance here. So I guess Jim does the right thing. He makes conversation. He can barely speak, so the Hitcher takes over. This construction man, I wish, would have paid a little bit more attention. There's something a little bit weird going on, but they get through. So again, there's no control or power for Jim. There's nothing he can really do. He's trying to strategically play this game, whether out of fear, panic, or he's just listening to what he's being instructed to do, like when the Hitcher says drive. But if you had a knife to you and somebody just said they did something and you saw the evidence that could support that, I think you would listen too. I know I would. This is when the Hitcher's games really begin. We have the famous line, the famous scene when he has his knife so close to Jim Halsey's eye and he says, "Do you know what happens to an eye when it gets punctured?" Ooh! Jim is terrified, but he asks him what he wants. He's trying to bargain. It's almost like the stages of grief. He was kind of in denial, and now he's bargaining. There's going to be anger. I can't remember all the stages. Would that have been a good lens? I don't remember all the stages, so... But I think that fits. And the Hitcher says something very interesting. He says, "I want you to stop me."
I want you to stop me.
And Jim Halsey is like, "You have the knife. What do you really want me to do?" And I have to wonder what the Hitcher means. And this is going to be a big discussion point throughout this, and I will come to some conclusions in some plot points that make the most sense to me. But I think this is more of a mind game for Jim and less an actual challenge. But knowing Jim understands the situation he's in, the Hitcher says, "What do you have to lose?" This is kind of a fair point. It's life or death. Now, you do have to be very calculated, because you might only get one choice, one movement, one thing that can save your life. So I understand when people say, what have you got to lose? If your back is against the wall, you have to do something. But I think you also really want to think about what that something is. Jim starts to cry, and again, I think we see how vulnerable, innocent, and young he really is. It really shines through here. He picked up the Hitcher thinking he was helping him. And we find out later, for personal reasons too, but it was all in good faith. And he didn't even read the signs as red flags. He didn't read them as violent or dangerous. He just thought he was a little strange. He was laughing. He was also trying not to insult the Hitcher. He was very careful with his words. Even when he wanted him to leave, he said, "I'm sorry, sir, the ride's over. Goodbye." Not "get the out of my car," you know? But now he's crying and he's scared and he doesn't know what to do. And it's just really, really sad. We see a little bit of a switch in Jim. I would say this is his will to live. He has a will for life. He has a hope for life. He's young. There's so much ahead of him. Because the Hitcher wants him to play the strange little game. He wants him to say, "I want to die." No, I don't want to die, is what I would think and what I would hopefully say. And I think Jim is in the same place because Jim is trying to get the words out. He's trying to say it. As he does, he's also looking at the lights in his car. He's understanding that there's an opportunity here, and he takes it. There are two really strong points here for Jim. When the Hitcher was pretending to get out of the car, I believe he left the door a little bit ajar, so this really helps Jim. I'm glad he noticed this and he's paying attention. Through his fear and worry and tears, he's still examining a situation and trying to make the right choice. He's smart. He's intelligent. The Hitcher is so caught up in his game, I don't even think he's realizing. Unless he set him up, that could be too. Again, the Hitcher psychology, over my head. But I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Within this as well, Jim is refusing to say these words. He could have easily done this next action and said the words, but he doesn't even want to give weight to them. And this will change, kind of. But he says, I want to.
I don't want to die!
And pushes the hitcher out of his car. Win for Jim, point for Jim, no points for the hitcher, bye-bye. No, it doesn't work out like that. Credits roll, no. As Jim is speeding away, because screw the hitcher, and this kind of comes back. We'll get to it. There's a lot of callbacks and parallels in this movie that I really appreciate. But in the rearview mirror, Jim is looking, and there's definitely adrenaline rushing through him. He's checking himself as if to say, am I hurt? He's smiling, he's laughing, he's celebrating. He just survived something. He outsmarted a killer. Sure, celebrate. But we're supposed to be stone cold? Celebrate. And at this point, Jim never indicates that he's going to call the cops or he wants to call the cops. There's no indication that he wants justice or to catch the hitcher. He's just happy to be surviving, to be away from him, to keep driving. He's innocent, he's happy, he has his will to live, and we can all celebrate that. But it's not going to last long, because something's going to change. This will to live is going to be impacted by what I also think makes Jim great. So the path he goes down is really hard to understand, because I think not only does he start so innocent, I think he also starts as a very, very good man who really thinks things through and wants to help others, thinks about others, sometimes even before himself. But that doesn't carry through the whole story. He's back on the road, he's happy, a car passes him, and he sees kids in the back window. They're kind of waving to him with their teddy bears, and Jim is just happy. He's just happy to be alive. He's enjoying his drive. Everything's back to normal. Everything's okay. He's not even soured or hardened by the experience. He's just happy. But then, in that back window with those kids, the hitcher pops up. He's chosen another victim, and it is a family with young kids. The hitcher does not care who you are, who you love, who you have, what age you are. He'll kill you. And Jim doesn't doubt this for a second. Jim is a young man himself. This is when Jim makes a choice. He could have kept driving. I don't think I could have. So he goes up alongside the car and he's bumping the horn and he's saying, get him out of there. He's dangerous. He's going to kill you.
Boom! That guy will kill you!
He's trying to warn them, but it's not getting through, and it's already too late. The hitcher's in the backseat with the kids. I don't even think a warning could have saved them at this point, but we do get to see the morality in Jim. We do get to see him putting the life of others before himself. It's not just the will to live anymore. It's not just the will to survive. There's some justice he wants, but he also wants to save others. He wants to stop the hitcher from hurting. He actually ends up putting himself off the road. It was a very dangerous thing to do to start with, but you can see that the danger he's putting in is to help others. He goes off the road, he is bumped up, scratched up, does not care, puts her in drive and goes again. He wants to save this family. Unfortunately, it's too late. By the time he catches up to them, this car is on the side of the road. The movie spares us from seeing it, but I think it's also so effective in how it's shown. It looks abandoned. There's no hitcher in sight, but he walks up to the car, there's blood dripping, and we can imagine the sight that was inside. Jim has now failed to warn and to save others. What he could have been, he sees in others. Does he take some of the blame for that? Does he now feel responsible for that? I don't think 100%, but this is where we do see a shift in Jim, that no longer does he want to just keep driving and get to his location, his destination. He wants to involve the police. He wants the hitcher to be stopped. He doesn't want to be hurt by the hitcher. But he doesn't care at this point. What he's thinking about is he doesn't want other people harmed, and the hitcher will harm them. So now, his mission, his journey is not to get to California. His journey is to get the police. And I can tell you right now, this is not going to be an easy journey. This is a very abandoned stretch of road. And even when it's not abandoned, it's few and far between. This is where we start to learn that this road he's on, this interstate, this highway, this desert westerny area, which I love, it looks great, and we're into the daylight horror now. But he learns that nowhere is safe. He pulls up to the nearest gas station, the first one he sees. He wants to go in and make a phone call to the police. This gas station is seemingly abandoned. We don't see anyone around. Knowing what comes in a minute, the hitcher may have killed the people that were in there. Do I doubt it? Absolutely not. But he tries the phone anyway, and it's not working. So this is a lost cause. But the hitcher, continuing the game, dangles some keys in front of Jim. His keys. The Hitcher wants to show him the control he has and that he can trap Jim whenever he wants. But he's also showing Jim that he won't necessarily kill him. He'll mentally torture him. Because he hands the keys to Jim, he doesn't hurt him. But then he hitchhikes with another man outside, and Jim has to run and chase. Jim is like, no, 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 don't go with him. He is now seeing that although the Hitcher is catching him, trapping him, playing with him, he also needs to catch and trap the Hitcher. Oh, it's just so good. This is also a shift in the Hitcher, because the Hitcher no longer wants to hurt Jim or kill Jim. He could have done it right then and there. He wants to play this game. He wants to hurt Jim, not physically, but through the environment, through the surroundings, through the people. It's cruel. We get to the second gas station, and on the drive there, the Hitcher is playing with him, kind of rear-ending him, like bumping the bumper. Jim is scanning the road. He is on edge. His innocence is dwindling because he is living in fear. He could have kept driving. He could have kept driving and just tried to get all the way home. But he still wants to get the cops, and I don't think it's just for him. I think if it would have just been for him, he would have done it in the first place. Or maybe he's now seeing how really dangerous the Hitcher is, but for me, I think he's trying to save others. So in this gas station, we get a very iconic scene. It's very Christine. That's what it reminds me of. Because this may be abandoned, the phone may not work, but I almost said something crude. That gas station is gonna explode. As we're at this gas station, the Hitcher just drives through the doors in a truck. Everything starts exploding. Jim is in a burning car. He's now putting himself in dangerous situations. He's in dangerous situations. There's nowhere for him not to be in a dangerous situation. And he's going to put himself in more, but the Hitcher is going to make sure that he's surrounded by them. But he is not dead yet. He is still going. I have to imagine he's losing a bit of hope. I mean, you stop at 2 gas stations. The Hitcher is not only at both, but also you can't get a hold of anybody. This is like the playground for the Hitcher. He knows the terrain. We see him go off the road and onto the sand or dirt or rock. He is not consistently just taking the main highway. He has shortcuts, which means he can find you anywhere. He could be anywhere. Jim is rightfully paranoid. This is what I believe is the last minute of Jim's normality, his innocence, who he was before. I think he lets himself slip back into that in this moment, but it's taken from him to a point that he will never find it again. And this is when he goes to the diner and he meets Nash. He shows up, Nash is the only one in there, and he's like, listen, please let me in. I need to use the phone. Please, please, please. She sees something in Jim. She trusts Jim. She's a little bit skeptical of him. He's a stranger. But something is like, yeah, come in, get cleaned up, make a phone call. I'll make you some food. God love Nash. She's so sweet, and what happens to her is going to be very terrifying. He calls the cops. He's going to wait for them. He is putting a lot of faith in them. Probably all the faith he has left, all the hope he has left. He knows he is not experienced enough. He is not in a position to handle this situation. So he's seeking authority. He's seeking somebody he was taught he could trust. And we're going to see how the police fail him. But as he's making that phone call, he goes and he takes a shower. If you were super paranoid and so afraid, I don't think you would be able to come back down, get a shower, get cleaned up. But for me, because he made that phone call, because he's around other people, I think he feels safe enough to turn back to who he is, get cleaned up, have a meal, just relax for a minute, wait for the cops, everything's going to be okay. But it's not. The Hitcher is there. The Hitcher is putting a knife in his coat pocket. The Hitcher is putting a finger in the food. So Nash is asking him, is everything going to be okay? He says, I hope so, or I think so.
Everything going to be okay?
I hope so.
You can see a little bit of a light in him. He feels like himself. He's talking to somebody and it's not in a very urgent situation. It's just really sweet, and I like that we see Jim, and I think this warms Nash up to him, but this is going to be cut short. This is when the system fails Jim and the framing by the Hitcher starts. This is where the psychological horror of all this really hits. The Hitcher is demented, calculated, strategic, larger than life, like I said. Jim is about to eat a fry, the food Nash prepared for him, and he finds a finger disgusting. He runs out. Any bit of safety he had, any bit of reverting back to him, just relaxing, thinking everything's going to be okay, he's reminded that the Hitcher is always there. The Hitcher is watching him doing stuff, manipulating his reality. He cannot escape the Hitcher, even if he thought he did. The cops come, and seemingly we think they're going to help him, but they're yelling at him to get down on the ground. And he's trying to yell, he's in there, he's in there. He's confused. Why are the cops yelling at him? And I'm confused too. This is where we're at a crossroads, I would say, in the storyline, because on first watch I said the Hitcher drove him crazy completely, 100%, it's all the Hitcher. But I do think the system failing him right now, the police continuously failing him, is going to be a problem. Now, the police are doing their job. He is being framed, but I will point out something in a second where they could have gave him some peace of mind or heard him out a little bit more, which they don't do. Maybe they intended to. I don't know interrogation styles, but either way, this is going to have an impact on Jim. When Jim feels like he cannot depend on the police, it's going to impact what he does forward. The cops are being very rough with him when he's down on the ground. They have a gun to his head. They're going through his pocket. They find a bloody knife. I was like, what is happening? The Hitcher is framing him. Oh. So like the finger and now like the knife, and even the 2 gas stations, Jim is reminded that he can never have safety and comfort. Even when he thinks everything is fine, he should be paranoid. Being paranoid is one thing, but being proven you should have been paranoid, that's what's going to screw you up. The cops ask Nash, do you know him? And she says not really, which is the truth.
Not really, no.
Jim looks a little bit insulted by this, like he was depending on her. He's a bit disappointed, but you are a stranger to her as the Hitcher was to you. You are a complete stranger. She could have let you in there early when it was just her in that cafe for the first little bit. You could have hurt her. She put trust in you, but she doesn't know you. You could be capable of this. She would be wrong to falsely be like, no, he's fine. I know he's good. She doesn't know you. In the interrogation, we see Jim's hope drain in real time. He does not look like he could be responsible for this. The detectives know he doesn't look like he is capable of this or that he did it by the way his demeanor. They really don't think he did. But they discuss that amongst themselves. They do not include Jim in that conversation. So Jim is feeling like he's being framed. He's hopeless. But there was a bit of hope. They did believe him a little, but they didn't give that grace to him, so he never sees it. Because when he wakes up, there's no discussions to be had. And this is where I think we're really seeing the Hitcher get to him, because we've seen him be very expressive with his emotions, both happy, emotional, sad. He's just like a deer in headlights. I think he's in shock. He can't believe what's happening to him. He was talking about how this was a drive away. He was so excited for this. And you can see that excitement is completely drained away. This is not what he had hoped for. This is not what he intended. He put himself in this location because he thought it was going to be simple enough. He put himself in this situation because he thought that he could just give a hitchhiker a ride. Now look at him. This is a nightmare. They try to call his brother. They try to call the place that's doing the drive away. There's no answer. Jim is not getting any resolution. And again, the cops and detectives are not giving him any peace of mind. They are not showing him that they believe him, which I think is a disservice. Now, again, I don't know how you interrogate someone, but I think he needed that. He needed to know someone was on his side because he's going to feel very alone, and that's going to be detrimental.
That kid isn't a killer. Any fool could say that.
The detective says, this kid isn't a killer. And the viewers, we see the same thing. He does not look capable of killing. I barely thought he was capable of getting the Hitcher out of the car. When I first watched this movie, I was wondering to myself if this was going to be like a Scream cold open. He was going to kill Jim, and then we were just going to see the Hitcher doing bad shit. No, he had the strength to do it. But he doesn't look like a killer. He does not look capable of killing. I would never have imagined this story goes where it does because I never thought he would ever have the ability to kill anybody. He's very innocent, very vulnerable. He's seeking help from authority, and he's also trying to get justice. He's trying to help others. He's never once choosing violence. He's trying to solve it. He's trying to stop it. But we are reaching the breaking point because Jim Halsey goes into his cell for the night. He goes to sleep. He's having some nightmares, but he wakes up and his jail cell door is seemingly open. He can get out.
Hello?
And so he starts to walk out, but he calls out, hello? He's not trying to escape. He's trying to say, hey, what's going on? He hasn't completely lost faith in authority because if you were guilty of something or you were really convinced that they could never help you, you would probably just take that opportunity to sneak out, right? But I think he has a feeling the Hitcher's been here because the Hitcher's been literally everywhere else. He realizes pretty quickly what's happening because there is blood everywhere. The Hitcher has slaughtered this police station. Again, the Hitcher is a monster. I have to wonder, is he just a man? I don't know. Maybe. We now reach another big decision point. The police are coming, they're responding. I'm sure the Hitcher called them. He seems like he's scheming. Jim grabs a gun. What is he gonna do with the gun? I don't know. He grabs it. Defense? Is he going to become a killer? Is it for himself? We kind of explore all of that. He runs with the gun. There's a will to survive. He doesn't want to just get captured by the police because he knows he's being framed. And yes, they had some doubt in him, but if he's the only one in that police station and they all end up slaughtered, I think he knows what that looks like. So he's running away. He's hiding. He has a gun. He's not going to be taken in so that he can have the fall for this. He now knows that his will for justice also involves some self-preservation. He hides the gun, but he runs to this cafe, this gas station, because there's a phone there. Seemingly, he's going to call the cops. He doesn't want them to have their hands on him, but he wants to speak to them. So he still has hope for them. He just needs, again, to have some self-preservation, protect himself a little. But this is when Jim, self-preservation, definitely wins out here because there is a couple cops filling up their car, and Jim pulls a gun on the cops, tells them to get in and drive them, holds the gun, and says, I'm running the show here. He's taking control, but this is also very dangerous for him. But he doesn't care. I don't think he thinks there's any other way, and I don't even know if there is. Even if right in this moment he just went and killed the Hitcher, he would still probably be framed for this. He would have to take the fall for it. He can't just kill the Hitcher. He needs to trap him. He needs someone to believe him. He needs the truth to come out. He says we're going for a little ride now, and he honestly looks manic. At this point, I was even wondering, knowing who Jim has been before all of this, even though we're seeing him get hardened so quickly, can he even use a gun? So I feel like at this point, he doesn't have trust in authority, but he has hope for authority. I think before he had both, and now he just has the hope. This is what he's clinging to. He's thinking 2 birds, 1 stone. We catch the Hitcher, I'm free, and the Hitcher's done. It's not that simple. But as he's in the back seat and he's ordering these cops to call the captain so he could speak to him, he kind of just puts the gun down and looks defeated in the back seat. He just kind of slumps. We can see this is not who he is. This is taking the energy out of him. He doesn't want to pretend to be this. He just wants help. That night's sleep, it didn't really do much for him. They give him the radio and he's telling his story. He says,
I swear I didn't kill those people.
He's such a kid. Like, this is just such a reminder that he's a kid. They ask, what do you suggest we do? And he says, come on, tell me. He knows he's not the one to make these decisions. He knows he can't make these calls. If he thought he was the authority to make a call in the situation, he'd be doing that. He's looking to you. He sees the hierarchy. You are who can stop the Hitcher. You are who can save me and save all these people. Not him. He's collateral. For now. The captain says, if you surrender, I promise we'll get you treated fairly. I don't think that's what he wants, but I do think he trusts the captain. I do think the way the captain is speaking to him, he thinks he can get through to him.
I'm putting my trust in you, Captain.
And he says, I'm putting my trust in you, Captain. And in my notes, I have, even when I pause the movie to see this, you can see the Hitcher and that friggin' truck coming up in the rear view window. I could scream right now. This is why I love when I'm doing my voice notes, because I'm just reacting, but it is crazy. It is just crazy. You see him coming up. You know that even though we're reaching a point of maybe some help for Jim, the Hitcher's about to ruin that. The Hitcher is always there. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He's Santa. The Hitcher comes up, shoots the cops. Jim screams. He sees what has happened. His help, his hope is done. He's the one in the car with the cops. How do you think this is going to look? And in this devastating situation, we also see the Hitcher could have killed him, but he doesn't. So we get to Jim kind of accepting that he has absolutely no control of this situation. Even if he has some trust in the cops or wants help from the cops, he's running out of ways to access them in a safe way because of the Hitcher. We're about to get to one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I think it is so powerful because it really speaks to this journey that Jim is on, not the physical drive journey, but discovering who the Hitcher is and what that does to him. We see an innocent kid full of life, excited to live. Then we see him wanting justice. And now we're starting to see him want to survive. But through that journey, he loses a little bit of himself. He's losing his emotions. He's having to become hardened. He's seeing scary things. I mean, at first he was puking every time he saw something. He's going to stop puking. He starts screaming. The mountains are behind him. It's a guttural scream. I think he's really starting to feel hopeless. This is when I laugh at some of the letterbox reviews I read because they'll say stuff like, if he would have just listened to his mom, this wouldn't have happened. But he's doing everything else right now, and it's not working out for him. So even if he didn't pick the Hitcher up, do you think he wouldn't have caught up to him, swerved him off the road? We see what he's doing to other people. We're seeing what he's doing to Jim now. If he wanted Jim, he would have him. So this is my favorite scene in the movie. We see Jim make a very big decision. In this helplessness, this hopelessness, this devastation, this uncertainty, violence, trauma, all of this, he has to make a decision. Because he has a gun, and he puts it to himself. Is this his only way out? He doesn't pull the trigger. He puts the gun down and unusually looks devastated. Like he feels the torture, the pain that's going to come along with choosing life. Choose life. Train spotting. But there is pain and suffering in choosing to go on. And whether it's because he can't do it or he doesn't want to do it, either way, he now has to survive. It's not so much about justice, even though justice is kind of a key to survival. He needs to survive, but he really needs to protect himself. And he needs to protect himself not just from the Hitcher, not just from the police, but from what situations the Hitcher can put him in. But I like to believe that he doesn't not do this because he can't get the, what's the word? I don't want to say courage to do it, but he just can't do that action to himself. I don't believe that. I think the reason he doesn't do this is because in that last moment of what could have been his life, he had to search for if he had any hope left. And I think he does. So I like to believe when he gets up and he walks on, that he does have hope. And I do think we see him change here. I do see that he's no longer pitying himself or feeling sorry for himself. He's starting to get angry. He's starting to move with this energy. Jim finds a cafe and he walks in, and this is where we see Jim starting to take things or matters into his own hands. He's no longer asking for help. He asks for a cup of coffee. He's not calling the police. I think he knows that deal he made with the captain is over. He knows with that gun, he has to do something. Whether that be get out of here or kill the Hitcher, I'm not really sure exactly what he wants right now, but he's not calling for help. It's him against the world. The facade kind of breaks though, like this new energy, this hardened shell that he's in right now. When he goes over and sits in the booth, he kind of retreats to his innocent child self. It's really emotional. I think the acting is really well here. I like seeing who he is in those moments, those quiet moments, when he gets a second to decompress. Who he really is still there. And then the Hitcher shows up, because of course he does, and he sits across from Jim. But Jim has that gun locked and loaded underneath the booth, and he says, I'll do it. I'll shoot you. He's scared, but he's not cowering. He's very scared of the Hitcher and what the Hitcher can do and what this means with the Hitcher being in this public place, but he's ready to do what needs to be done. But I think he still does it out of fear at this point. Jim almost gets excited like he has won up the Hitcher here, like he's winning this chess game they're playing, because he says, I'll blow your brains out of your ass, or whatever he says.
Or I'll blow your brains through your ass.
Overnight, we have seen a violent side of Jim. I could never imagine Jim saying this before right now. But he's saying it, and he means it. He got the gun under there. But the Hitcher does as the Hitcher does.
The gun is empty.
Have you even checked the gun for bullets? Do you even have bullets in there? We see this cocky moment for Jim get erased. Because, like I said earlier, we know he doesn't know how to use a gun. He's never used a gun before. He didn't know how to check it. He didn't think to check it. Why would the Hitcher ever let him have a weapon with bullets? And Jim kind of realizes the Hitcher is 10 steps ahead. The Hitcher's playing the long game. It's going to be very hard for him to catch up to the Hitcher, let alone get in front of him. And we start to see the psychological chokehold the Hitcher has on him because he's challenging Jim to do it. And Jim says, I will. But we know Jim is doubting that he even has bullets. And how will the Hitcher react if he pulls the trigger and nothing comes out? The Hitcher has his fingers on the table, kind of pretending he has a gun. And he says, I'm going to squeeze my trigger. I'm going to shoot my gun. Then he says, bam. And we hear the empty clicks of the gun. The fear in Jim's face. Would he have shot the Hitcher? Yes. But it would have been too late. The Hitcher would have made the first shot, that bam. Jim is not taking the first shot. He's reacting to the Hitcher. He is not violent. I think he is in defense mode for now. What really breaks my heart is Jim asks the Hitcher, why are you doing this to me? Again, we get these glimpses of this innocent kid who doesn't understand what's going on or why. And I think the horrifying thing about the Hitcher is there doesn't need to be a reason. You were the one that survived. And unfortunately, he loves that. I think he loves that more than he loves killing. I don't think he's trying to beat you. I think he's trying to show that, yeah, you got me out of that car, but I still could have got you at any time. You did not survive. You got away because I let you. And now you can't escape because I have you trapped in all corners. Ugh. He gets under my skin. The Hitcher responds to Jim's question, though, in a very iconic scene by putting coins on his eyes. You'll figure it out. Obviously, this feels like death. This feels like a symbol of death. On first watch, I did think the Hitcher wanted Jim to kill him. I don't believe that now. We're going to talk about that a lot more, but that is not what I see. I see this as bait. I see this as a challenge, as a kill or get killed offering. The Hitcher leaves him, and he actually leaves the bullets or bolts in a napkin, an offering to Jim. There is a weird relationship here. It must be confusing for Jim because the Hitcher is causing him so much harm, but from this point and even forward, and I would argue even the police station, because the door was unlocked and Jim could get out, the Hitcher does help him sometimes. But I think what the Hitcher is putting into Jim's head now is if you want to get free of this, to be done with this, it's not the cops that are going to help you. You have to do it. If you want me gone, you do it. I just don't know if Jim's ready for that. Jim's last connection to who he was, I believe, is Nash. And so as Jim sees this bus, he gets on this bus, he has his gun, he's hiding, trying to go in the back so nobody sees him. He wants out of this place. Would he have got on this bus and kept going? I don't know. Did Nash being on this bus make him change everything? I don't know. Was he trying to escape? I don't know. I don't know if he could really go back home and forget about the Hitcher. He's also a wanted man. I don't know. Say it again, Alex. I don't know. But as he's on this bus and before Nash joins, he gets in the bathroom and you can see him struggling to try to put the bullets in the gun. Again, seeing how innocent he is, he doesn't know what he's doing, but he knows he needs some form of protection. He's taking the Hitcher's offering. And as he's sitting on the bus, Nash gets on. And now, from what Jim and we know, Nash saw him get arrested for something. So she may believe he's guilty as well. This is when Jim is turning into something. This is when he's really physically to the innocent, even the cops. But I don't think he ever would have done anything truly violent. But this is violent in itself with Nash. She is a young girl. You are subjecting her to something. You are involving her in something she doesn't need to be involved in. He covers her mouth and with the gun shoves her into the bathroom. But he's not trying to threaten her. He's trying to state his case. I'm innocent. You have to believe me. I'm not going to shoot anybody. And I do think Nash sees what we see, but it's blind faith and trust. And there's going to be a lot of parallels with Nash, Jim, and the Hitcher, which I think is such good story writing. He has a weapon, but he wants someone to trust him. If you have a gun to my head, I'm going to say I trust you. Just saying. But he sees this. He's still a little realistic because Nash says, sure, I believe you. He says, I know you don't.
Do you believe me?
Sure.
No, you don't. I wouldn't either.
Then we hear police sirens. So not only are we on our toes waiting for the Hitcher to appear, the police are doing their job. They pull over this bus. They're looking for someone. They need to check it all out. Nash will ask, what are you going to do? And Jim says, give up. It's not get help. It's not talk to the captain. It's give up. Maybe he thinks that he just lets the cards play. He'll be fine. He doesn't want any more violence. He doesn't want to run. He's just going to give up. I don't think he's giving up hope. I think he's just, again, trying to put faith in authority, but he has to do it in a different way. But this is where the cops really fail him. I think up until this point, they've had justification in what they've done and how it's played out. It looks bad for Jim. But this is some dirty cop work. I don't care if your friends have been killed. This is dirty cop work. Because even if you think you know the truth, we know you don't. I just watched 12 Angry Men, okay? Reasonable doubt. Also, let me know if you'd like me to do 12 Angry Men. I think it could be a fun, maybe it'll be a bonus one where we can actually go over the case, or we can look at the individual people and their reasoning and put each individual person on trial. Let me know. So Jim is not ready to give up his hope or his innocence, but he's ready to give up on this game. He doesn't want to play the Hitcher's game. So he goes out, surrendering. Just take me, cops. This is when Nash and Jim see what the cops are doing. Jim is saying, I'm unarmed, just cuff me. And they're trying to act like he is spitting on them or doing something to their hand, so they have justification in shooting him. You just wasted 2 of my friends. Give me a reason to shoot you, basically. This is where we reach a full point of no return. Because up until this point, Jim has not actually did anything to anybody that he could actually be on trial for. Well, yes, he could be on trial for everything, but us as a viewer, we know he's innocent of everything up until this point. But this point of no return actually starts with Nash, because Nash fires a warning shot. Oh yeah, she says let him go. That's a biggie, but Jim doesn't do it. So it's kind of hard. Nash made a choice here, but Nash is young and innocent too. Naive and innocent, whatever you want to say. Nash says you got the wrong man, and Jim has a little bit of hope here. He has someone to depend on. I just think he should have realized he never should have really depended on her that much. He should never put her in this position. I don't think the Jim that tried to save that family in that car, who was running to the phones to call the police, I don't think he would have put anybody in this position. I think it's where he is. This is what he needs. That he's so focused on self-preservation and not justice or saving others. He's not seeing, or maybe he's seeing and not caring, the position he's putting Nash in, not just with the police. He knows how the Hitcher works. Nash says we're in enough trouble already, empty the guns, like we just need to get out of here. The truth will set us free. The truth will prevail. Nash still believes what Jim believed earlier, but Jim is past that. Jim knows that's not enough. But Nash is kind of living in that space where Jim was. She hasn't been hardened. She hasn't seen what he's seen. But she's about to go through the motions that Jim went through. But her ending isn't so sweet. I mean, Jim's isn't either, but Nash's is brutal. This is when Jim gets blood on his hands. Now, the Hitcher we know is sitting and waiting. We can kind of assume that for the whole movie. And although Nash initiated this, they do steal a cop car to get away. And we get a fantastic chase scene. It looks so great. I just love the Western setting of this movie. But this car chase scene escalates, okay? Jim does offer to let Nash out, but she says, if I'm in the car with you, she won't hurt you. She's proven wrong pretty quick, but even with this offering, Jim should have recognized the danger he's putting her in. I love this parallel because the last time Jim had somebody in his passenger seat, they wanted to hurt him and harm him. Now his one bit of hope and protection and safety is in the passenger seat. It's very interesting. And he was the innocent one with the hitcher, and now I feel like he's the dangerous one. He is the eye of the storm right now. Jim tells Nash she has to get a gun and try to shoot their tires because they're going to kill them if she doesn't. I mean, it does look like it. And at this point, they've pulled a gun on the cops. There are cops dead. I'm sure, I guess you're supposed to use force to this nature. Shoot to kill. I don't know the rules. But that's what it feels like. And Jim is full self-preservation. He doesn't care about the consequences of this. He doesn't care in court what this would do to Nash. He doesn't care the danger of this for Nash. He doesn't care the danger of the cops. He doesn't care that you shoot someone's tires out on a high-speed chase, it's not just going to be run off the road. We see cars flip. We see people die. There's blood on his hands. The hitcher may have created this cascade of dominoes to get him here in the first place, but the hitcher didn't do that. You did. It's just hard. Then the hitcher really confuses us because there's a helicopter in the sky. Nash and Jim are basically about to say, this is it for us. And the hitcher shoots the helicopter out of the sky. He's driving alongside Jim and they're just looking at each other. And Nash is seeing this. Jim doesn't look scared. He doesn't look angry. He doesn't look sad. There's a connection. There is a knowing that is only between them. Freaky. Jim almost has this weird look of guilt, and Nash is like, who was that? What was that about? And Jim doesn't even go after the hitcher, and Nash asks what we're all thinking. Why didn't he kill us? What I've been asking myself the whole movie. If he really wanted to kill Jim, he could have. But we know the hitcher doesn't just want to kill Jim. And Jim says, let it go. And this is another interesting parallel because just like the hitcher evading questions about the bug, about where he's going, all these questions, Jim is evading this. He is becoming the hitcher in front of our eyes. Not motivated in the same way, but you can't ignore these parallels. So with blood on his hands and Nash as an accomplice, it's kind of controversial because the hitcher did put them in this decision. But to say they had absolutely no control, it's hard because even the police put them in a weird position. I don't really know, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. But Nash asks another $1 million question, why'd you pick him up? And Jim says, I wanted to help him. I was tired. We learned that he made this choice out of a little bit of self-preservation, which is really interesting. He made a reckless choice out of self-preservation. So the reckless choices we start to see him make now, is it because he's young and naive? Or is he hardened to self-preservation? I don't really know. We get to a certain point soon, but he's young. He doesn't know what he's doing. Maybe this is what he thinks he must do. Just like when he picked up the hitcher. I mean, he almost got into an accident. Maybe this was his Hail Mary. So they find this trailer in a trailer park. They're hiding out. Jim is going to get a shower, and Nash wants to call her dad, and Jim is like, no calls. I don't think he realizes the position he's putting her in. She is so scared. When he's in the shower, she secretly makes a phone call. Like, we see her innocence, and I'm going to get teary-eyed, I think, because my heart goes out to Nash because she did see in Jim the good. She had good faith in him. I think she believed that if she believed him and protected him, he would do the same for her. But I think the truth is the protection, safety, and comfort she gave to him, I think he deep down knew that he was putting her in more trouble. Even if the hitcher didn't kill her in the car, to think that he wasn't going to hurt Nash is beyond naive. I don't think that can be excused with innocence. So Jim is getting in the shower. He's getting cleaned up. Again, I think we're starting to see him feel comfortable enough, but I don't think it's because he feels comfortable in this situation like he did when he was first calling the cops getting a dinner. I think Nash gives him a safety blanket, but that weird thing with him and the hitcher, I think he oddly feels safer. I think he's really starting to understand the hitcher's not going to kill him. It's weird. But what he doesn't consider is that the hitcher would kill Nash. The TV is turned on, he gets out of the shower, he hears things, he knows something's wrong. He grabs the shower towel rack, and he's ready to fight. But it's too late, Nash is gone. We had the point of no return of physically having blood on your hands, but I would say this is the mental point of no return, because Jim goes looking for Nash. He does want to find her, he knows the hitcher has her, deep down he knows. I know that he needed her and he latched onto her, but she would have been better off without him. And he hitched onto her, something I wrote down, and it just, the parallels really freak me out. So as he's looking for Nash, even now, knowing Nash is in danger, he's hiding from the cops. He's evading the cops. Again, this just goes to show he's in self-preservation. This is not just about saving somebody. He was willing to drive off the road and bark the horn and scream and shout for the rafters and pull a gun on cops to talk to the captain. He wanted to help save justice. Now he knows Nash could be in danger and he's still avoiding the cops. Is it because he thinks if the cops catch him, they won't be able to get Nash? I think he would easily be able to say, hey, Nash is gone. You need to help her. I think he's really just self-preservation, but at what cost? It's Nash. The cops finally believe him because they see him and they say, Jim Halsey, we're going to need you. But the cost of the cops finally believing him and the hitcher being revealed is Nash's life. Because we find out the hitcher has Nash tied to the trailer hitch of a truck and another hitch of a stationary vehicle, I believe. And he is going to pull her apart. I am glad the movie spared us from this, but I also think when it happens, it's much more effective not to see it because you have to sit in the horror of it happening. But the cops, which you don't negotiate with terrorists, isn't that a key thing? They're putting a young boy in the truck with the hitcher. I think it's crazy, but the hitcher is just too good at what he does because he knows the cops have to do this. Because if they just shoot and kill him, his foot comes off the clutch, she's ripped apart. They don't give him Halsey, he gives her the gas, ripped apart. He really doesn't have a choice. So Jim gets in and we're face to face with the hitcher. And this is the first time I've seen the hitcher look distressed or sweating or bothered in any way. It's interesting. It's also very interesting that the hitcher is kind of willing to get caught. Is it because he knows this is how he can get to Jim? Or is this because he knows he can get out? We know what the hitcher's capable of. Again, we have another interesting parallel because the hitcher's in the driver's seat and Jim is now in the passenger seat and he will be in the passenger seat with a weapon. And the hitcher offers him a choice. He tells Jim to shoot him, but Jim knows if I shoot him, she dies. If I don't shoot you, she still dies. I think this is the hitcher trying to show him that this request of I want you to stop me is not a choice. It's all going to turn out the same. If you do not kill me, I will make your life hell. I will kill people. I will hurt people. You'll be witness to it. You don't have to be blamed for it, but you will be forever haunted by me. You know they can't keep me. Even if I get arrested here today, will you ever not look over your shoulder? I think that's what this was. I don't think this was ever a real choice. Like if he shot him, his foot will come off the clutch. We know she would die. And the hitcher, when he doesn't shoot, he does put his foot on the gas. My question I want to ask to you is if some way, somehow, if he shot the hitcher, it would work out that Nash could get off. Do you think he had the guts to shoot him at that moment? Or do you think the guilt of this situation is what hardens him? The position he was put in, the finally being cleared by police, but knowing this is still not over. Do you think that's what drives him to kill? I also wonder if there was anything that could have been done for Nash. Could they have went in with something while they're having this discussion in the truck and tried to get her down? Is there anything they could have done? It doesn't matter because he pulls her apart. It's a violent, horrible, terrifying death to a poor innocent girl who just wanted to believe in the good of someone. And like Jim, who also wanted to believe in the good of someone, their innocence was lost. The difference is Jim has to live with it and Nash doesn't get a choice to. He needed Nash. Nash never needed him. And the time that she did need him, he couldn't save her. And he has to live with that. And I think that's what really turns him. I think he understood the hitcher's message here. And I think the loss of Nash sets him over the edge and turns him into somebody capable of killing. The aftermath of this is in the police station. They're sending their condolences to Jim, but he's just a shell of himself. This is a point where I don't think Jim will ever be the same. I don't think he could ever recover from this mentally. Like I said, there was blood on his hands. He's been through a lot. He's seen a lot. I think he still had hope that there could be a resolution. Not anymore. It doesn't matter what the resolution is. He has to live with this because he says himself that he made a stupid decision. He picked up the hitcher. He was falling asleep. He was tired. He should have listened to his mother, but he took a chance. And when you take a chance, a risk like this, you never imagine that it would get to this extent, but unfortunately for Jim, it did. He insists on seeing the hitcher, and they take him in because they realize that the hitcher will only talk to him. They can't really get anything out of him. He won't even tell them his name, but he did tell Jim he's John Ryder. I do wonder if this is really his name because he thought that Jim was going to end up dead, so who cares if he knows his name? I would like to know more about the hitcher. When Jim goes in, he spits on his face. Jim doesn't want to talk. Jim just spits on him. It's a very strange scene. The hitcher likes it, kind of. But I believe the hitcher is wearing a wedding ring. Am I seeing that right? What's going on there? We reach the final question, which will also come into witness testimony, but the final scenes of this movie is, does the hitcher want to be stopped? The hitcher is escorted away. We see the hitcher in a vehicle going one way and the captain taking Jim home in another. This is another point in the movie where he could have just kept driving. He could have just kept going. Like every decision he could have made at the start of this movie, this is another time he could have just kept going. But he has his innocence in terms of the courts. The hitcher is captured, but Nash is gone. His innocence is gone. His hope for life, I think, is gone. His trust and authority is definitely gone. His belief that they can keep the hitcher is gone. The only thing he believes in is that he needs to stop the hitcher. This is where Jim regains full control. This is where Jim wants to be in control. This is when he tells the captain, "Sir, there's something I gotta do." And he holds the gun up and he takes the vehicle. He turns it around. He doesn't just drive away. He knows he's going to be in a lot of trouble for this again. This isn't to prove his innocence. This is vengeance or safety. It's just something he gotta do.
I'm sorry, sir. It's something I gotta do.
And as he's holding this gun up to the cop, a very interesting callback as he cocks the gun. He went from somebody who didn't even know to check bullets, who could barely load a gun, to somebody who was ready to shoot it. And he's calm, he's collected. He knows what he has to do, because the hitcher has told him all along. And now we approach the hitcher. He says you're never going to hold him, and he's right. Because as he's getting to the hitcher, we see the hitcher gets out. And not only does he get out, he jumps through the frickin' windshield of Jim's vehicle. We still see some fear in Jim because when the hitcher smashes through the windshield, he is screaming, he's scared, but he does slam on the brakes and send the hitcher flying. He's ready to do what he needs to do, and the hitcher is excited by this. But the thing is, he was right. You would never have held him. I think the hitcher would have caught up to Jim if Jim didn't go back for him. It always had to end this way. I don't know how much of these choices did Jim really have control over. It's like he was hypnotized, brainwashed, like a puppet. When he hits the brakes and the hitcher's gone out of the car, this also really reminds me of the start when he pushes the hitcher out the door. But he doesn't celebrate. He doesn't turn around and drive away. He's watching the hitcher. He's going to finish the job this time. Maybe what he should have done at the start, but we know that Jim could never. The hitcher's standing up looking at him, screaming, "Come on." And I didn't know if Jim would have the guts to do it. And again, more parallels, like the hitcher driving out of the gas station, pushing the gas when Nash was tied up. Jim hits it and he runs over the hitcher, just boom, screw the hitcher. But the hitcher's not quite dead. Jim is not going to get away with doing this with a vehicle and walking on, driving away. He's going to have to get face to face and do what needs to be done. The hitcher looks brutal and Jim doesn't really look scared. He has the gun, and although you could say he's probably checking if the hitcher is alive, the way he moves his hair from his face, there's something more there. There's something more to this movie. And as Jim is walking away, though, because I think he believes the hitcher is dead, or he knows this is going to happen, The Hitcher stands up behind him. Oh, he rises and he's still cuffed and it's amazing. Jim is almost smiling. I think he knew he would have to do this to the point where he was almost excited to finally just do it. And do what he does. He fires shots and he boom, 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 kills the Hitcher dead, we assume, for Jim, definitely. And then Jim goes over to the car, and before the credits roll, he leans on the car, the sun starts to set, he lights a cigarette, and I think for the first time in a long time in this movie does he really relax. But what is also haunting about this last moment is he did what he needed to do, but his innocence is completely lost. Can he relax? Sure. But he has to live with all of this. He has to live with taking a life. He has to live with some of the guilt of people who died around him, who people have died because of him. Even if the Hitcher is the one to blame, you know there's going to be survivor's guilt. There's going to be some kind of guilt there. All because he picked up the Hitcher. Oh, that one choice. So now we're going to get into witness testimony. I was basically asking the questions that I introduced at the beginning about responsibility, about what the Hitcher really wanted. Lord Volkov says, if surviving means stopping a monster, sometimes you need to become a monster yourself. I can see this. I mean, I would not hold on to my morals to the point of dying at the hands of something so brutal. I do think life or death can change things in a horror movie. It's just hard. I don't think he's a monster. I really don't think he's a monster, but I do think there's blood on his hands, and I do think he had to become something to shoot the Hitcher, and it's just depressing. But in a horror movie, I think you kind of need to. Jim has culpability when he had the opportunity to stop the Hitcher and didn't. If not the first time, then definitely every subsequent chance he didn't take. In terms of having opportunity to kill the Hitcher, the only other time I think he really could have is when the Hitcher shot the helicopter down. He wouldn't be able to do it in the police station. With Nash, we can see the reason he didn't. He would have done it in the diner, but there were no bullets. So I just don't think he had enough opportunity. So I don't think the reason he has blood on his hands is because he didn't get rid of the Hitcher when he should have. I think it's because how it just all played out. Especially with that drive away, but he was put in an impossible situation. It's hard. I think the Hitcher's motivation is a combination of, I want someone to stop me, and if you won't stop me, I'll make you into me. That's kind of where I sit, because I do think the Hitcher was playing a game. I don't think he wanted to die. I just think he wanted to make it clear to Jim that if you don't do this, you won't be able to just say, I'm not going to kill someone, or I'm not going to kill you, and I'm going to go on with my life. The Hitcher is going to say, kill me or die trying, even though the Hitcher never really tries to kill him after. I think he really just wanted Jim to kill someone. Bully Dog Bear says, Jim struggles with the dirty hands problem. Jim won't lower himself to murder, but in doing so basically causes Nash's death. Trolley problem dilemma. I kind of agree, but like I said earlier, I don't see another opportunity where Jim could have killed the Hitcher before. Shooting him in the truck, I mean, I guess Nash dies anyway, so kill him, but he was holding on to hope that he wouldn't kill Nash. Maybe I'm missing an opportunity, but I really don't think so. Later, when Jim kills Ryder, it's a Pyrrhic victory. I don't know what that word is, but Jim has become that which he hated. Ryder dies smiling with his own victory, knowing he turned Jim into a killer. The film leans more into violence isn't the answer, because you become that which you are resisting and fighting, and the absolute evil always corrupts. The only pure choice was to never pick up the Hitcher in the first place. Exactly. He was just put in an impossible situation, and the cops didn't help. To a point, the cops had reason for being the way they were, but then they got out of hand, and everything just got out of hand. When they start believing Jim when Nash is in danger, if that was the way it was from the start, this would have played out completely differently. He had nowhere to lean. I don't think he had any choice but to become what he hates the most. Ryder's repeated, I want you to stop me, is a game, a lure, pulling Jim into his world. Ryder's goal was corruption. He wanted to die at the hands of an innocent he turned to a killer. Ryder doesn't lose. He passes the torch to the new monster he created. I think what got John Ryder, the Hitcher, so excited about this was not the fact that Jim had enough guts to stop him, but that he got to play this game and that he got to win either way. Either Jim would always be looking over his shoulder or he would have to live with this new reality. My verdict on this entire movie is, although we can say Jim endangered Nash, he made poor decisions, he's an innocent kid. The one choice that would have changed everything is if he didn't pick up Hitchhiker, but it's too late for that. It happened. Everything else was psychological torture. The cards never fell in his favor. I don't think he really ever had an opportunity to get rid of the Hitcher early. I don't think he ever really had a chance with the cops. I don't see how this could have ended any other way, because even at the end, when he turned that car around, he was right. It's not like he had to pull the Hitcher out of there and shoot him. The Hitcher was out. The Hitcher was coming. The truth is, the moment he picked up the Hitcher, the moment he put himself in that dangerous situation, he lost his innocence forever. Every cascading moment, it still would have been brutal, even if the cards fell a little bit differently, because the Hitcher is just something larger than life. I do think he should have left Nash out of it. I do think it was a lot of self-preservation and selfishness to not even let her call her father when you know the threat of the Hitcher exists. This weird knowing you started to share with him. You started to see him. And I think that scared Jim. And I think that's another reason Jim had to get rid of him. But I do have to wonder if Jim would have just kept driving, if Jim would have, even when he saw that family, understood that he didn't have the power to stop him and just got away, would he get far enough to really get help, to wipe his hands clean? I don't know, and I don't think Jim could have ever predicted that. Even a dangerous hitchhiker, you never imagine it would be like the Hitcher. So I don't think I can call Jim a monster. I don't think I can blame him for a lot. But what I do know is he lost all of his innocence, his will to live, his lust for life. It's gone. The Hitcher won. Alive or dead, he won. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next week. This was Horror on Trial.